This video is all about this lathe, from not all the way, not every single step, just some of them. It's a complete restoration job. There are some, now I've been using it, there are some bits to it that I know that I need to replace. Like one of the bearings seems to have worn a little bit too much for adjustment. It's still not 100% done. Obviously I've got to make those bits. That Dewhurst switch, I still need to paint that. I don't know if I'm going to buy another one, so if I can source one, or restore that. It would be nice to restore it, but that is, it's like an old style blade switch on the inside of there. It looks very complicated to take to bits and put together right. That brass plate on the top, to polish it I'd have to take that off, and to take that off, this on the top is wider, so I'd need to take it all to bits to be able to take that plate off to be able to polish it and everything. But that's got the emblem on there for Dewhurst, something in Dewhurst switches. The lathe's turned off, I don't know what that's going on yet, but the whole idea is that's reverse, off, forward. And that, obviously I didn't think about safety in the past. I'm not too hot on health and safety myself, there's a lot of it that I ignore. I prefer caution. But that lever, as you work around the chuck and the pulleys and everything, the whole idea is to turn the power off anyway, but sometimes you forget. You can knock that easily and turn it off while you're de-chucking, sticking something else on, putting another chuck on or whatever. So what I do plan on doing is taking it off, it just unscrews. I'm making a knobble for the top and to have it a twist on the top rather than a bar that sticks out like that. But I've had the pulley sandblasted. You'll see that I didn't. You'll see in the video, at the end of the video, I still hadn't had that done. But I've had that sandblasted. This still needs to be painted. That still needs to be painted. I need to do some work on the bearings and everything, so rather than paint it and keep on pointing on and off and might damage the paint, I'll wait till it's all fully 100% done and then I'll paint it. That, I'm going to replace that with brass. That's a little project that I thought of for myself. I have a brass bar, clutch bar across the bottom, and that brass, and that brass. And I might do a click spring style, have that brass and then blue it, so I've got blue screws, brass bluing, which I think will look fantastic, to be honest. And that as well, I've milled one of these up in brass, so that'll be all brass. It's absolutely ditched already. There's a lot of cast iron dust in that, because I've been backplating 3 chucks. Got that one. All these chucks are way too big really for this lathe, but it's all I've got. All the other chucks are really old and naff, and they don't self-center, they don't work very well. There's a 6-inch one somewhere. Oh yeah, there's a 6-inch independent there, and there's a self-centering there. And the good thing is the self-centering and that collect chuck are brand new and they're cheap, they're Indian, and then both of them run absolutely true. So I'll stick a link in the description down below with some links to where I got those from. The change gears need cleaning up a little bit more, but I'm in the process. You can probably hear my 3D printer at the moment going off. I'm in the process of making some gears, some 3D printed gears with bearings. But anyway, I'm digressing quite a bit. That's the lathe. I'm going to be talking about that. What I'll do is I'll stick some links in the description as well for times, so you can skip through, because I've got a section on painting, a section of cleaning the metal, other sections, various. It's going to be a very long video, probably a 2-part video, and I'm sure you're not going to watch the entire thing. So I'm going to stick some handy links, so if there's anything in particular that you want to watch about this, you can click the link and it will direct you to that section of the video. This is my quick change tool post. Now you saw me in the video cleaning this up, which I've still got, I'll still keep, and obviously I'll stick some tooling in there that I don't use that often. I can just take that out, replace it with this. But this is too tall. The holder, as you'll see in the video, the top slide isn't flat on the top, it's got a post in the middle that's part of this casting. So I can't stick my quick change tool post on the top of it. And even if I did, that's just that little bit too tall for it. So the tools are right down at the bottom and still not low enough and on centre for the actual stock. So what I've done is I've temporarily put this plate on there to actually make it the right height, so I can set these tools to the right height. But in the process, this will be another video in the future, how to make a new compound, cross sliding compound slide. Because that, I've already milled this up already. As you can see, it's got the T-slots, it still needs cleaning up, it's very rough. I'll fly cut to the top, it's got a fairly nice finish on it to say it was done with that small epoxy lathe. But the whole idea is I'm going to replace this, the cross slide, and I'm going to have a disc on the inside with an index on it, so indexing marks, so I can turn it to the right angle and then bolt it down onto another plate, and then this quick change tool post will sit on the top of that. No, it won't, sorry, I lie. Now I'm going to have a compound slide, make a compound slide that's going to be part of that top disc. You just rotate round and then you're set. And then the compound slide on the top will obviously feed this. And I've designed it all already, so it's the perfect height and everything for this quick change tool post. But that'll be another video for the future. But that's what this video is. The whole purpose of this video anyway is the restoration of this lathe. At the end of the video, because I forgot to do it, I'll get some pictures up on the screen to show what this lathe actually looked like before I restored it. And I'll probably do quite a few other videos about this lathe as well, in particular about the bearings, because some thrust bearing modifications that I've done on it and another thrust bearing modification that I'm going to be doing. And I'll introduce that one a little bit. The delivery came yesterday. Originally it just had the one thrust bearing, which was between the pulley and the back bearing. That was all there was. So when you're putting the force on that way, it's not vibrating the pulley, it's not putting undue stress on the actual bearings. You've got a thrust bearing in there, but there was no thrust bearing at the back. So when you've got the tailstock out of the way and you're tooling this, it'll want to come this way. So I've done a modification already that I found some information about. There's another thrust bearing that I've put in between here and there, so I've got two thrust bearings. But when you're tooling steel, most of the pressure is on this front bearing, and there's no thrust bearing there. So what I want to do is I want to stick another thrust bearing in there that's wider, that goes between the chuck register and the bearing itself, and that should give a wider base as well for the lateral movement. And that bearing sits perfect, apparently, allegedly, inside that bearing. But since I've ordered that, I've realised that that bearing, I think, is too worn now to adjust. You turn that collar and it pulls the bearing into the casting a little bit more and tightens it. And the bearing's got a slot in it, but I think that slot is now fully closed and I can't tighten it anymore, because that's got some movement on it. I can snug that up and I can feel it getting tighter and tighter, but that one stops. There's no movement on that now at all, so it's at the end of its life. So I think another video is how to make another phosphor bronze bearing with a ball bearing inside it, because these are phosphor bronze. The maximum speed really you're supposed to run them is about 900 rpm, 1000 rpm. I want to be able to turn faster than that, a little bit faster than that for small diameter stock. So what I'm thinking about doing is having rollerball bearings put inside these bronze bearings. That's another project and another digression. I slap myself upside the head every time I think about digressing. But anyway, that's oh yeah, I put new caster wheels on the bottom of it, and that's the original bed and motor that's not used anymore, and I'll use that bed for something else. Slap upside the head. So that's the intro. Now on with the video. The video is going to start with the actual cooking the paint off the metal. Right, time to do the cooking. This is going to smell nice. What I'm doing is I was boiling the water up. I'm using bicarbonate of soda. This is bicarb as well. When I took the seal off the top, it ripped the label off. Yeah, that's a part used one. Bicarbonate of soda. Not to be confused with this stuff. Baking powder. I picked this up by accident when I was dazed after a long night at work. I realised my mistake and went back and got the proper stuff. Now, you will make a mess. So if you've got a wife, girlfriend or whatever that's currently at work, you want to make sure you can get all this process done first and cleaned up before she comes home. Otherwise, you'll have one hell of a headache. You can see all this powder on here at the moment. That's from another cook-off that I did. I've got a Myford, a Drummond A type lathe. That's already cooked off and everything, and I've primed it and painted it already. But anyway, what you've got to make sure is that you don't fill up all the way to the top, because when you put the bicarbonate of soda in, it'll froth up like mad, quite badly. So just put a little bit in at a time. It's not frothing up as bad as what. Ooh, nearly. When I did the cook-off before, there was about half the tub that was a bit solid at the bottom. I went like that, shook it, and the whole lot went, and it frothed up quite bad. So loosen it off first, because I don't want that to happen again. I'm putting a fair bit in. I don't know how much you have to actually put in, but say, bear in mind there's a bit in there, say that's a full tub. I've got my sieve, and the reason why is you don't want to be sticking small parts in like that, little, that's like a wedge nut, gets pushed down into the bearing, and it spreads the bearing out into the casing. So that goes in there, and also a split pin. When you need to cut these these pins and everything, I don't know, but you might as well keep everything together, and you don't end up losing stuff. That goes in. I've also got this colander, a lot of nuts in, and these have got the old paint on the top. Now you think to yourself, why are you doing bolts and that kind of thing? Well, you've got the thread and everything, you might as well keep it all complete, everything clean, and also you don't really want to be picking away at this, do you know what I mean, taking all the little bits off and everything to reuse the bolts. Now with the newer lathe, obviously you just replace the bolts, but I haven't got one imperial spanner, and I've got to use an adjustable spanner all the time. It's a pain in the backside, plus I don't really know imperial bolts and nut sizes, so rather than replace nuts and bolts, rather just use the ones that came with it, if I can. So that's them. They're separate though. All that lot is for the carriage, the slave unit at the back, the slave pullers, and for the legs and the swarf tray and everything. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping everything separate. All this stuff in here, in this colander, and the stuff underneath the camera is from the headstock. You can see how crudded up this is. All the old flaky paint and everything, and the oil and the grease. Now before I put this in, obviously that's grease that I can clean off with a wire brush. So I'm going to do that first. before putting it in, because you can see how this water's turning brown already, or you might be able to see that water's turning very brown, and that's just off those little things. So what I'm going to do is obviously you clean off most of the grease and then you just bang them in. Stuff like this I don't really want to be going around with wire brushes and paint stripper and everything, where you can just dunk it in. So that's that bit. I'll come back to you when I'm doing some bigger bits. Right, I'm on the last two pieces that were too big for the other pan. I've got this bar, which is the tensioner at the back of the lathe. For the motor hangs off the actual legs itself, and then you've got the slave pulleys, and this is a tensioner bar, so you can release it or raise it. Yeah, I mean, so not all of that pressure is on one pulley. So that I'm still going to have to do in two pieces. In fact, put the headstock unit in first. This is the state of the headstock, as I think I've showed you before. I've got most of the grease off and then got a bit bored and I thought I'll soak it instead. This is not going to go in complete either. So the idea is not to burn the hell out of your thumbs. Use grips or tongs or something. That's what I should have done to start with. Got a hell of a lot of weight to this, for these. And I'll stick that in. And I'll boil some more water. You can see the state there, look. It does. That'll need cleaning up. Alright, let's see how this is going. This has been in now for about 10 minutes. Let's take that bar out first, isn't it? That's probably going to be red hot. Oh yes. There's my wire brush. It's like using them paint stripper, isn't it? You can now see why my cooker is a mess. It'll be cleaned. When I get this out, I'll put that back in, handle side down. But this is going to be mighty heavy. Right, this is mega hot. Obviously you don't want to touch it. This is cast iron, well any metal really, it's going to hold the heat for a long time. But as you can see, the paint is just evaporated off, and all the grease as well. All the grease, oil and paint is off it. It's going to take a little bit, grab a rag from somewhere. This is going to go into soak it anyway, to the other end. Now don't get hung up, because what I found with the Myford Drummond A type that I had, that I did this way. Don't bother getting hung up, getting every single little piece off. It'll eat you alive. Because you have little, this is rough casting, so you have little dips and hollows in the casting. And rough sections that haven't been machined. And the problem obviously gets into those when you try to dig and dig and dig, it's just a pain in the backside. So you get the majority off, and when you come to clean it up proper, you then concentrate and get the bigger bits off, or bits that you can, just with sandpaper. See what I mean? I'm not going to get hung up over that bit. And there's, oop, there, ow. There's no paint underneath anyway. So it doesn't hurt to give it a bit of a rub, and that's that. 4/5 done. Now that's just this end to do. So this is now going back in the pot. It didn't take too long to clean. Only about half an hour. Fair liquid and water all came off, all that white crap. Now on to the next stage, which is this stuff, vapor rust, to get rid of any surface rust, and we get pitting right there underneath. That's going to be like that on the lathe anyway. You're not going to see that bit, but at the end of the day it's a renovation job. Renovation, is that the word? Restoration. It's a restoration job, so I'm going to clean that off as well. That rust in there, because it's pitted, will be a nightmare to get off without using power tools, which I don't fancy doing because that's a tight fitting surface on the rails. You don't want to mess about with that, so as light as possible underneath. So because I've been a cheapskate, I've only got one of these tubs. It's not massively expensive, but it's expensive enough. Now I've used this already for the Drummond M. That's why it's a little bit brown. It's a little bit brown when you get it, and it's fresh in the tub. You take the lid off, it's clear. And that is so safe. You can stick your fingers in it, you know what I mean? It's not an acidic, caustic liquid. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to fit as much here as I can. I'll do the sliders first. That's a good tip as well. Any bolts or screws, just leave them in, and then that way you know where they all go. You haven't got a ton of bolts or screws. You literally just drop them in. Not too fast obviously, otherwise you'll splash the liquid everywhere. It's a little bit over. Now the sight, I don't think I'm going to get all this lot in this go. That's brass sticking up in the air there that isn't really affected by this stuff. This stuff, what happens is it gets rid of rust and corrosion on carbon, high or medium carbon metals. Aluminium, brass, bronze, non-ferrous metals don't have the carbon inside it, or some non-ferrous might have a tiny little bit of carbon, but not a massive amount. So technically the higher the carbon, so like iron is a very ferrous metal, so iron works very well. High speed steel, carbon steel, you get the gist. Anything that rusts or corrodes easily should be affected by this. even I'm putting brass in because it's got a slight tarnish on it, and hopefully it might actually clean that up. If I can find it, just briefly. Here's the bearings from the Drummond A. The whole idea is, it's not a bearing as sort that, obviously way off, like between World War I and World War II they were short on various things, bearings in particular. So that the spindle goes in there and you tighten a bolt when you fasten it down, bolt goes in there, you tighten them down, it closes that hole up, that bore, and it puts pressure on. There's a slot just inside there, can you see it, that's machined, and you've got an oil well here. So you pour the oil in, it drips into that gap there. The spindle itself, because it's tight in there, stops the oil spinning out, and when it's turning it self-lubricates. So it's a damn good idea. Why they don't still do things as simple as that these days, I don't know. But anyway, on to the subject at hand. I'm putting all the little bits in, even like nuts and all sorts, because what happens is, if you look on a website about this evaporust, it's a typical American sales video. Dip something in, pull it out, wow, it's nice and shiny. It's not nice and shiny at all. When this stuff comes out, whatever's in the liquid has a chemical reaction with the carbon in the metal, and it lifts some of the carbon up from just underneath the surface to the surface, so it darkens the metal. And this is the effect. It's like a slight cold bluing effect. Now that was a lot darker. When it comes out of here, you'll see what I mean, and when I dry it off it's a lot darker. It's similar to that and a little bit matte. We'll see if we can find another piece. This, I'll put oil on this, I'll clean this off, but you can see it's like a dingy grey colour. Now you get some wire wool with a bit of oil, just put a bit of oil on it and then go over it with wire wool, and it cleans a lot of the residue off, the black carbon that's on the surface, the powder, and it gives a nice old metal look, which it is, it's old. I mean the Myford, the Drummond A that I've got was made in 1914. And that was the Drummond A, and the Myford M what I've got is, I think, between 1940 and 1950, so it's old metal. What's the point in making it shine? That went with the Drummond. So I'm going on a little bit, I'm just seeing if there's anything else that will fit in. Yeah, you've got another bolt. Right. This is going to be annoying to... What else can I fit in there? Will that go in? No, I'll have to do another soak. Now depending on the potency, if it's brand new liquid, it'll obviously do it a lot quicker. When I was doing the Drummond A, I left it overnight, literally. I put it in soak, went to work, came back about 14 hours later, something like that. Took all the bits out, cleaned them off, and they were perfect, not a speck of rust. What I'm going to try to do now, I'm going to time this. What time are we on now? The time that we're on now is, good God, 1:45 in the morning, 12:45 AM. I work nights and I'm working tomorrow night, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop up all night till about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. So what I'll do is I'll come back to this. It's 12:45 now. I'll come back at 3 o'clock. That's 2 hours 15, and see what the process is there. Now the website does say as well, and it does say on the bottle, that if you get stuff like that where stuff's sticking up in the air a little bit, you can top up water, just tap water, which I will do now if I can find the tub. Just a little bit, you don't want to go over the top obviously. You don't want to dilute it too much. That's it, that's just enough. And also, I have heard on Facebook a few people saying that they use coffee filters, and what they'll do is they'll poor man's funnel. You'll get the bottle, obviously stick that in there, or decant it into another tub first. Put your coffee filter in there, and you just tip a bit out, and it filters. It filters all the crud. Well, not all of it, but quite a bit of the crud, and then you get a more concentrated mix coming out of the tub. So I'll come back to you at 3 in the morning. I'll take these out, and if they're good, and if they're done and there's not a speck of rust on them, I'll clean them off and then put these in and soak those for about another 2.5. Soak these bits for about 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. Experiment that way. Right, let's have a look, see. Took a little bit longer, I've been reading a book. Got engrossed in the book. They're sticking out of the water because I've already had a little look. Looks like it's gone pretty well. Unfortunately, I was hoping it was going to burn some of that off as well, get rid of some of that. There's still a little bit of primer, which is not a problem because I can use sandpaper or a small wire brush to get that off. But that's one piece. Can't remember, was a bit of that brass? Can't remember. Let's get a piece that was rusty. Some of the crud. Let's get some wire. Let's get some steel wire. Right, I said steel wire. It's obviously wire brush, wire wool. It's bit of double O. Oh, let's loosen the paint. A few paint flecks. Some of the crud looks loose. See what I mean? Now it's cleaned it all up, and this is only after about 3 hours. I'll take them all out now, and I'll clean it all up a bit better, rather than up in the air. So what I mean about the rust. Now the rust has been took out of the pits. And it's got a lot of this carbon knock. It's lifting carbon off the metal as well. So if you're going to heat treat this, if you've got, say, a rusty tool, you wanted to reheat treat it or do some kind of heat treatment, maybe with the carbon being lifted to the outside, once you clean the excess off, you've still got carbon there in the pores of the metal, minute pores. Maybe if you case hardened it, went to case harden mild steel. I'll start again. If you want to case harden mild steel, it doesn't case harden as well because mild steel has got less carbon in it. So maybe by doing this, it raises a little bit more of that carbon to the surface, which then gives you a stronger case hardening. Maybe. But I haven't tried that. It's just something that's just flicked into my head now. Instead of faffing about like that, I'm going to get all the little bits out. And then resituate the camera so it's better. Look at that. That's come up. I'm going to resituate the camera and I'm going to go to town on the cross slide with the wire wool. I'm going to rinse these off in water first, just under the tap, just with a preliminary bit of rag, just to get the excess off. That's a bit of a risk. That's the thread, threading gauge. It seems to be still stiff. I'll have to see if I can get that apart somehow. Going on and on, aren't I? I'm getting all these little bits out. Ooh, that's got rid of a bit of corrosion off that. Anyway, I'll come back to you when I've got all the bits out and I've got the camera situated to clean it off a bit better. Right, I've got the wire wool. In this tub, I've got to stop going. In this tub I've just got baby oil. It's not proper oil, you wouldn't use baby oil on a machine obviously. Again, obviously this is in the house, I'm not going to be using spray. I've got some GT85 spray from Asda with PTFE included in it, and that's what I'll use for the machines, to give a spray over and wipe to make sure that there's no corrosion from moisture in the air, especially over winter. This is also, I'm not going to spray in the house. I don't want my garage smelling like a garage, my kitchen smelling like a garage. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this baby oil, which is effectively mineral oil anyway, or butcher block oil. It's effectively the same flipping oil that you get in baby oil anyway. It's a lot cheaper to buy baby oil than mineral oil, even though it's pretty much the same thing. Just make sure you get baby oil that's unperfumed. You don't want your metals smelling like a baby's arse. I'll show you on this one piece, the biggest piece. I'm not going to show you on every single little piece that I've got, because that'll both be very time consuming, boring, and pretty much repeating what I'm doing here anyway. It's just going over it with wire wool. It's getting the excess off it. No loose carbon. And like on other pieces, I've still got a little bit of paint. Like on here, I've still got a little bit of paint, primer in the corners, which has been a little bit of a rushed on. But that is, I'll just check actually. I'll just get a brush. A small one. Smallest one I could find anyway. I've got a smaller brush somewhere, but that liquid, that evaporust, has actually loosened the primer a little bit as well, which I'm amazed at. It hasn't lifted it all, obviously. It's not as good as the bicarbonate of soda. It's a bit of a tension. You can clear off the excess. The loose carbon. I think I like that effect. Still got a little bit of tarnish here and there, but to be honest, I'm not worried, because I don't want this to shine. I want it to show its age and a bit of character. Right, now comes the construction. clean it all off. Hopefully I've got all the bits, and I've got 2 screws missing, or 2 bolts. Hopefully I've mixed them up and they're in with the headstock or tailstock section. This is the gib. It's rather long, but it is the right one. That, it's got the divots there. Let's see which way it goes. That goes that way around. That's better. The problem is now I've got to find the right placing. I think it's towards the back. That feels like it's got it. I'm just going to slide this together and then mess about with these. And then the screws obviously on this side, tighten down on that gib and pull it all tight so it doesn't slop about so much. So that means it's a bit tight there because I've done that one up. It's supposed to be tight. That goes on there. And then one of the lead screws, misplaced it, there it is. No, don't want to go in, and that's why. That's not tight. I'll come back to you. I say I found a screwdriver the right size. There's a screw in there. You can undo it, so whatever position this is in, you can move the scale around, then tighten it back up again. I forgot I'd loosened it off. That's it. You're probably thinking to yourself, why are you doing this when I can just do that? I've got to get it in so far. Otherwise the grip might come loose and fall out. Right, that goes that away. I've got to find the screws for it. I think these are them. It's a bit awkward. I'm putting it on the wrong way around now. This no doubt will go on very easily off camera. That's it. Something's not quite right there. That's what it was. This is what I mean, I haven't got imperial spanners or anything. Sure, let's do something a bit more professional. dunce. Well, that's wrong. No, it's not. This screw head's still dirty. Looking at it, I haven't cleaned the primer off these. Whoever paints fittings, there's a special rung on the ladder to hell reserved for those type of people that paint over screws and bolts. Works. I'm doing this quick for the camera, but I can work all that lot. There's still a little bit of paint here, still a little bit of primer to scratch off, which, considering the state of what it was before, I'm not worried about that for now. I'm trying to get it all constructed, so I've got bits of flipping lathe all over the place. I'm not going to paint this at all, any of this. I'm just going to leave it bare, so when I get to it I can then clean it off proper. That's just the top half of the carriage. Underneath here is the apron. Now I'll take that off before I end up spilling oil all over the place or knocking it over. You've got that there, which is part of a half knot. There's no thread on there. More modern lathes, they've got a thread on the top and the bottom. The whole idea is that rests over the top of the lead screw, and this is the mechanism for it. I'll zoom out a little bit. And that's the half knot there. So what happens is, obviously, the other bit sits over the top, lead screw goes through, and then when it's down at the bottom, it's not power feeding. You flick it up, and that engages the screw, the lead screw, and then that's a nice spring mechanism there. Now I don't know if that mechanism is original or if it's modified, because every picture that I've seen of the Myford M has got a different type of knob that you pull out. It hasn't got this bar on here. It's a knob that you pull out and then pull down, and then you raise it and it clicks into place. It looks like a previous owner lost it, couldn't find a replacement, so came up with his own design. It's a very nice positive design on that. And then that's the wheel, obviously it turns that. But the problem is, because so I've got that one gear, it hasn't got another gear there that engages the geared rail underneath. It's cack-handed. How you do a lathe, you turn the wheel to the right to move the carriage to the right, and to the left, or say clockwise. You go clockwise to move the carriage to the right, anti-clockwise to go left. Whereas this one, because there isn't another gear there, you turn it right, it goes left. You turn left, it goes right. So it's the wrong way around. But the whole idea of that is that once the screw in, once the lead screw is on, bolts on like that, and it's a very nice, strong, solid saddle. And that was obviously nice, solid top slide, compound slide as well for the top. Not accurate as in setting angles, because there's no 360 degree protractor on it or anything to get the angle right wherever you want. You've got to measure it, and with a indicator you've got to indicate first to get, and no trigonometry to get an accurate taper or angle. But at the end of the day, it's an old lathe, coming on to about 80 years old, something like that. But that's one part anyway. Right, I forgot to record the priming. I bet you're feeling very lucky now, aren't you? The priming, I use this Paragon grey primer. It's quite expensive stuff, but it's fantastic stuff. And this is the zinc primer. I laid it on. This is only one coat. I laid it on fairly thick, and I was brushing around, obviously, to smooth it all out. The primer goes on a lot better than the paint itself. The paint, I'll start painting that. I'm not going to do the inside of here because the lathe covers it anyway. These are pointless. I can't see why there's these gaps here, so I'm going to fill them in with something, probably some blocks of wood, and seal the blocks of wood with some sealer prior to putting the second coat of paint on, because that is just going to fill up with oil and crud and crap, and it's going to stay filled. So I'm laying this on quite thick. You'll get sections like that are slightly darker. Like I say, I'm laying it on quite thick. I got told the first lot of painting I did on another lathe, I got told by a few people to lay it on thinner, do thinner coats and do more coats. It lays on better. But I found with the other lathe, I was worried with the first coat because the first coat wasn't going on very well. I was spending ages like this, do you know what I mean, trying to fill in, trying to put more paint on and try to get it an even colour. It's a waste of time, absolute waste of time, because when you put the second coat on, the second coat fills in all of that and you get a nice even coat. And it's better to put more than one coat on anyway. So the whole idea is, because this isn't smooth cast iron either, it's old cast iron. So you've got all little bumps, hollows and dips. And the best bet is, with the first coat at least, is lay it on quite thick. This paint does keep a wet edge for a long time. I say a long time, not hours and hours, but it's not like this here. You get some paints, you do some, and then you'll start painting around, and when you get to this edge you get like a ridge, and you get a horrible effect there when you meet up. Whereas this, it's got a long wet life, it's got a long wet edge. The wet edge lasts a while, so when you go over, it blends in nicely, you don't get a skin on the edge. Now, I haven't got a great deal, as you can tell, I haven't got a great deal of experience painting metal, so I can't really compare this to any other paints. Oh, I can, sorry. I used hammerite, hammered effect, on cast iron bench legs for outside, and it was an absolute nightmare to paint on. I hated it, I hated every step of it, and in the end I managed about half of what I wanted to do, and I took it somewhere and got it sandblasted and started again with another paint, and I can't remember what that paint was now, but it wasn't actually metal paint, it's just something that I had. That didn't lay on great either, so I took it to get it sandblasted again. But thankfully, the place that I had it sandblasted, they are fairly cheap for DIYers. You pay them cash and they don't have the VAT on the top, which is very nice of them. And they powder coated it for me instead. And it's a case of just getting it home and bolting the wooden slats to it, and that was it, finished. So when I got this paint, I was asking for quite a while, at least a couple of weeks at various groups and whatnot, and a lot of people, the vast majority of people, were recommending this Paragon paint. It's very good for, it's very heat resistant, and a lot of model engineers use it for like static engines and steam trains, that kind of thing. Because like I say, it's very heat resistant, so it doesn't peel like other paints might be prone to doing. Probably get my head in the way now, sorry about this. I won't paint the entire thing on camera. In fact, I'll probably come back to you. I'll just do this bit that you can't see anyway. Much the same as that side. Now this is the way I work. I should have closed these ends up first before I put the first coat on. Because now I'm going to put the second coat on. Those ends are going to be there and it's not going to cover as well, so then I'm going to have to put a third coat on. Or a second coat on these two ends anyway. See what I mean about these lines? It does smooth itself out, it seems to self-level a little bit. So now I've done that bit, I'm going to go around the edges because I've painted the other side already up to a certain point, but I didn't want to go round before I put the primer on. This side, I've done things a little bit awkward. Really what I should have done is stand it up or hang it somehow and paint the primer on both sides and then paint it both sides, but I didn't. I did one side and then the other, so now I've got to match up the edges, but thankfully it's underneath. I've chosen underneath where you're not going to see as easy. So I'm going to stop recording now because you can't see this bit anyway. I'm going to concentrate a bit more instead of just slapping it on. Bent over double at the moment. looking underneath to make sure I'm not leaving any grey. And what I do is I try to cover everything, all the grey in one go. Oh, so I'll come back to you when I'm putting the second coat on. Right, this job's dragging on. This is now 2 days after I put the first coat on. You can see it, hopefully. Let's have a look at the screen at the back. You can see it's a little bit patchy. I did decide to paint this, so well, originally it's got these gaps here at the side, so I thought, why modify? You might as well just keep it exactly how it is. You can see this patchiness here. It's dark there, and it's got quite a few dark areas. That's like when you brush in and then you go over it again, wipes a little bit of it away. Like I said, the primer goes on very, very nice. It's just, you slap it on. Be careful to keep it even. Obviously, you don't want big wet areas and then dry areas. So you don't just slap it on, like I said. Yeah, I mean, you're careful. You keep it even. But the paint does go on the majority nice, but then when you do like an opposite brush stroke, pull some of it away a little bit, just when you get that first contact. So the second coat, what you're standing on at the moment is the legs, and I put a second coat on there. It does cover very nice. A tip, these are cheap and nasty, the cheapest possible brushes I could find, because the whole idea is to do a coat, throw it away, do a coat, throw it away, rather than try to wash them all out, and then when you do, you dry them, and then when you put your first coat on, first coats, it's probably still got a little bit of thinner in there. Now obviously with cheapness you get hairs, you get some of the hairs that come away. Now it's not infinite, not all the hairs come out, it's just a few odd ones. So when you're putting the primer coat on, you might get a few hairs, you just pick it off, and then after a while the hairs stop coming off. Same as you'll use different brush obviously for the paint. And then after a little while you don't get no more hairs coming off it, and it's a perfect brush. And what I do is I don't throw it away, and I don't clean it out either. I'll just leave it. But what I do is, obviously, if you leave it out in the open, it's just going to set and it's going to go rock hard. So what I've tried to do, that experiment, is to wrap the brush up in tin foil, wrap it up tight to stop the air getting to it. 2 days later, I took the tin foil off. It's still perfect. And the good thing is with that as well, you've still got paint in the brush, not just on it. Because the first few coats of whatever paint you put on, whatever type of paint or colour, you do a couple of strokes, fill, stroke, fill, and like that, and after all, you've got to wait for the actual paint to get through and saturate the brush, and then you don't have to put so much on, and then the paint lasts a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do, less talking, and get on with the second coat. Lighting's not fantastic, it's just my kitchen lights, and I've got a spotlight on the opposite bench leg. And those dark patches there you can probably see. I'll go over that now. Another tip, what I found, I nearly forgot. The first coat, brush strokes went that way. So what I'm doing with the start of the second coat is going the opposite way. And then I go over that way. The first coat is basically just to wet it and just put the first coat on, obviously. The second coat is the smooth coat. But like I said I think in the other video, it does tend to self-level, so when you get brush strokes in it, don't worry about them, don't think to yourself, God, I've got to get those brush strokes out, because
it self-levels. Unless you put it on ultra thin, and then it probably won't. That's another tip. Instead of brushing like that flat, brush to the side so you get a thinner stroke. And it seems to lay on a lot easier because you use a lot more bristles in the same area. As opposed to spreading them all out, you're doing that. And it's... Sorry if you've done a lot of painting. It sounds like I'm trying to teach you how to suck eggs. I'm not. I'm not that experienced in painting, so the stuff that I'm saying now is basically pretty much what I picked up from painting all this lot. I'm not being very methodical at the moment. I'm not painting a bit, then another bit, then another bit. Might as well start in the middle, work your way out. Yes, Mark, listen to your own advice. It's another thing with an old brush as well, you don't worry about damaging the bristles, damaging the brush, you just slap it into the hard areas and then smooth it out. When you get pulls, because doing that obviously you'll get runs and pulls in the corner, you just soak it up with the bristles. You can already see how more even that is. I think I might be able to get away with just having 2 coats. Hopefully I don't need a third, because to be honest I'm getting a little bit bored. I'm getting very, very bored at the moment of painting. I'm not even finished. All these bits that you can see on the table, it's not everything. There's still a few other bits as well that I haven't even put a primer coat on yet. So I'm getting the legs, the swarf tray done, so I can set them up in the shed and get the caster wheels on the legs. I can start painting from the base up then. I've already put 1 coat on all these, like the headstock, 2 sections of the tail stock, the gear train banjo, and the inside of the gear cover, change gear cover. And then the whole idea is that, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, you can't, just right up in that top corner, just here, you've got a slot, and there's a stub that sticks off the side of the, there's a stub that sticks off the end of the lathe, and that just, it doesn't hinge, it just slides on, sockets on. So the whole idea is do the inside, socket it on, and then I can paint round the edging and on the outside. So even when I've constructed it all, there's still going to be some painting to do. I'm hoping, to be honest, it's the 31st yeah, that tired I can't even remember what month it is. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, it's 31st of August. I had a long night shift. I'm painting this and then I'm going to go to bed. So it's the 31st of August, and I'm hoping by mid-September I'll have had it all painted, all constructed, and then it'll be troubleshooting, like lining up the headstock and the tailstock and sorting out bearings, fine tuning and dialing it all in, the dial indicator and everything, and shims, which will be fun. And funnily enough, I'm actually looking forward to that. Getting it to the point where I can actually experiment with, well, not experiment, yeah, I mean fine tune with the DTI. Get everything all dialed in, hopefully to around about 1/1000th of an inch or less tolerance, and then test it out with actually turning something. And then I can see the fruits of my labour, if that's the term. Right, how does that underneath look? What do you think's a bit patchy? Because remember, I didn't do this, did I? I'd only primed it. So now I've got to go around underneath. Well, you're not going to see anyway, but Michelangelo, he didn't miss certain parts when he was sculpting, when he was carving marble figures. He even carved around the back of figures that no one would ever see. Until obviously a recent day when you've got cameras and they can stick cameras around the corner and photograph around the back. Do you know what I mean? Like figurines in alcoves where you only see the front and the sides, you don't see the back. You'd also carve the backs. They weren't flat, whereas these, so if Michelangelo can go into that detail, knowing that it'll never be seen, or thinking that it'll never be seen, I might as well do the same. Because who knows, someone in the future might actually walk into my shed, squat down and look underneath there. I'm rambling on, aren't I? Let's face it, if you've got this far in the video and you're still listening to me, you've got a lot more patience than I have. Because when I'm editing this, I'm more than likely going to be scanning through my own damn voice because I'd be sick of hearing it by now. And I'll come back to you when I finish painting all this lot. The next shot actually will probably be in the shed when I've got it all set up, and I'll get the camera and I'll go around it